You think juke joints were just about blues music and cold beer? Think again. These smoky roadside havens served up some of the most flavorful and affordable soul food in American history. Let's dig into 30 cheap dishes served at African American juke joints in the 1960s. Hot sausage sandwiches were the lifeblood of juke joint menus across the Delta and Deep South. Thick links of spicy pork sausage were grilled until the casing snapped and the fat rendered into crispy edges that sizzled on flat-top griddles. The sausages were split and pressed between slices of soft white bread, dressed with yellow mustard and sometimes pickles or onions. The heat from cayenne and black pepper cut through the richness of the pork, leaving mouths burning and customers reaching for cold drinks. These sandwiches cost pennies to make but delivered bold flavor that matched the intensity of the blues playing on the jukebox. Workers coming off shifts could afford them on wages that barely stretched. The simplicity was the point, letting the spice and smoke speak for themselves. Pickled pig's feet sat in gallon jars on counters where smoke hung heavy and laughter echoed off wooden walls. These gelatinous, vinegar-soaked pieces of pork were pulled from brine with tongs and served on wax paper with saltine crackers. The meat was tender from hours of simmering before pickling, falling easily from small bones that required patience to navigate. The vinegar brine cut through the richness of the fat, creating flavor that was sour, salty, and deeply porky all at once. Pig's feet cost almost nothing since butchers considered them throwaway cuts. For African Americans who transformed every part of the hog into something delicious, pickled feet represented both economy and culinary tradition passed down through generations of resourceful cooks who wasted nothing. Fried catfish sandwiches turned river fish into roadhouse gold at juke joints near waterways throughout the South. Fresh fillets were soaked in buttermilk to remove any muddy taste, then dredged in seasoned cornmeal spiked with cayenne and black pepper. Dropped into cast iron skillets filled with hot lard, the fish emerged golden and crunchy while the flesh stayed moist and flaky inside. Served on white bread with hot sauce and tartar sauce, these sandwiches delivered the protein that kept working people going through long nights. Catfish was abundant in southern rivers and cheap at local fish markets. The smell of frying fish competed with blues guitar and the slap of dominoes on wooden tables. For a quarter, customers could fill their stomachs and still have money left for beer. Neckbones and rice-filled plates at juke joints where the music played late and budgets ran thin. These bony cuts from pigs were simmered for hours in seasoned water until the meat fell away and the collagen melted into silky gravy, served over mounds of white rice that soaked up every drop of rich, porky broth. This dish stretched to feed crowds on budgets that left nothing for waste. The bones held pockets of succulent meat that required gnawing and sucking to fully enjoy. Juke joint cooks started these pots early, letting them bubble while preparing for evening crowds. Neck bones cost almost nothing at the butcher because most customers didn't want them. But black cooks knew time and patience could transform cheap ingredients into something extraordinary. Smothered pork chops were Sunday dinner brought to Saturday night at juke joints across the rural South. Bone-in chops were seasoned with salt, pepper, and garlic powder, then dredged in flour and fried until golden. The chops were then covered in rich onion gravy made from pan drippings and sliced onions cooked until sweet. Simmered low until the meat turned fork tender, this dish delivered comfort that transcended the smoky juke joint atmosphere. The gravy clung to every bite, demanding rice or bread for sopping. For customers missing their mother's or grandmother's cooking, smothered pork chops transported them back to family tables and Sunday afternoons where love was measured in how long the gravy simmered. Crackling bread appeared on juke joint tables as the perfect companion to plates of greens and beans. Made from cornmeal batter studded with crispy pork cracklings, this bread carried smoky, salty richness in every bite. The cracklings were rendered from pork skin and fat until golden and crunchy, then folded into the batter before baking in cast iron. The result was bread with pockets of porky crunch that complemented the earthy sweetness of stone-ground cornmeal. Sold by the slice or square, crackling bread was cheap to make but rich enough to satisfy hunger on its own. The cracklings came from the same hogs that provided every other cut, ensuring nothing was wasted. This bread carried memories of country kitchens and family gatherings. Fried gizzards were the overlooked treasure that juke joint regulars ordered by the bag or plate. These muscular organs from chickens were cleaned, boiled until tender, then dredged in seasoned flour and fried until the coating shattered with each bite. The texture inside was dense and meaty, unlike any other part of the bird, requiring serious chewing that made the eating last. Served in paper-lined baskets with hot sauce for dipping, gizzards cost almost nothing since they were considered offal that most Americans ignored. But African-American cooks knew gizzards delivered more flavor per penny than almost any other protein. Regulars would order them by the basket, picking at pieces while playing cards or watching others dance. This was soul food at its most practical. Pig ear sandwiches showed up on juke joint menus as crispy, chewy proof that every part of the hog had value. The ears were cleaned, simmered until tender, then sliced and fried until the edges turned golden and crispy. The texture was unlike anything else, combining soft cartilage with chewy skin that required committed chewing. Sandwiched between white bread with hot sauce and pickles, pig ears delivered porky flavor in a form that announced you knew real soul food. These sandwiches cost almost nothing since ears were practically given away at butcher shops. For customers who grew up eating every part of the hog, pig ear sandwiches were comfort food and proof you understood the traditions that made juke joint food special. Red beans and rice anchored Monday menus at juke joints following New Orleans traditions that spread across the South. Dried kidney beans were soaked overnight, then simmered for hours with ham hocks, onions, celery, and bell peppers until they broke down into creamy, smoky goodness. Served over long grain rice that absorbed the rich bean broth, this dish stretched one pot into enough food for dozens. Monday was the traditional day for red beans, born from letting beans simmer while doing laundry. Juke joints kept the tradition alive, offering plates that cost little but delivered complete protein and deep satisfaction. The smoky pork flavor, married with earthy beans, created something greater than humble ingredients suggested. For transplanted Southerners, this was home. Hog maw was the dish that separated locals from outsiders at juke joints, where tradition ran deep. This was pig stomach, cleaned meticulously, stuffed with seasoned potatoes and sausage, then slow roasted until tender. The stomach lining turned silky, while the stuffing absorbed, rendered pork fat, and became impossibly flavorful. Sliced thick and served with hot sauce, hog maw rewarded those brave enough to try it. The dish required hours of preparation, the stomach needing multiple cleanings before stuffing. Juke joint cooks who made proper hog maw earned reputations that spread through communities. The cost was minimal since hog maw was considered waste by those who didn't understand its potential. For customers raised on every part of the pig, this represented tradition and skill. Chitlins were served at juke joints during cold months when hog killing season brought fresh supplies to kitchens across the South. These pig intestines required hours of cleaning, soaking, and simmering before they became tender enough to eat. The smell was unmistakable and polarizing, announcing their presence throughout the building. But for those who loved them, chitlins delivered a rich, earthy flavor that connected to African American foodways stretching back generations. Juke joints served them with hot sauce, vinegar, and crackers, the acidic bite cutting through the richness. They were holiday food and celebration food, appearing on New Year's Eve when tradition demanded. Eating chitlins at a juke joint meant belonging to a community that understood their significance beyond mere taste. Fried pork chop sandwiches offered quick satisfaction at juke joints where customers needed food fast and filling. Thin-cut chops were seasoned simply with salt and pepper, dredged in flour, and fried in cast iron until the edges turned crispy and the meat stayed juicy inside. Slapped between slices of white bread with mustard or hot sauce, these sandwiches could be eaten with one hand while the other held a drink or rested on a dance partner. The bones were sometimes left in, requiring careful navigation, but adding flavor that boneless cuts could never match. Juke joint cooks kept chops ready during busy nights, frying batches as crowds swelled. For a working man's wage, this sandwich delivered protein, fat, and satisfaction. It was simple food done right, without pretension, but with skill that came from years of practice. Collard greens simmered in back kitchens at juke joints where the pot stayed warm from afternoon until closing time. The greens were stripped from their tough stems, washed repeatedly to remove grit, then slow cooked with ham hocks, fatback, or smoked turkey until they turned silky and tender. The cooking liquid, called Potlikker, became almost as valuable as the greens themselves, rich with vitamins and smoky pork flavor. Customers ordered bowls of greens as sides or meals, sopping up the broth with cornbread. The dish cost almost nothing to make but required patience and attention that separated good cooks from great ones. Collards represented sustenance and tradition, appearing on tables from the Delta to Detroit, wherever African Americans gathered. At juke joints, they grounded rich, fried foods with something green and nourishing. Oxtail stew appeared on juke joint menus as the kind of slow-cooked luxury that turned tough cuts into velvet. The bony tail sections were browned in batches, then braised for hours with onions, carrots, and tomatoes until the meat fell from the bone and the collagen melted into silky sauce. Each piece required gnawing and sucking to extract every bit of flavor, making the eating slow and satisfying. Juke joints served oxtail over rice, the grains soaking up the rich gravy while customers worked through bones. The dish was Caribbean influenced in some establishments, seasoned with allspice and Scotch bonnet peppers that added heat and complexity. Oxtail cost less than prime cuts, but delivered richness that expensive steaks could not match. This was food for people who understood that time and technique created value. Pinto beans with ham hocks filled bellies at juke joints, where economy mattered and flavor could not be sacrificed. Dried beans were soaked overnight, then simmered all day with smoked ham hocks that contributed salt, smoke, and gelatin to the pot. By evening, the beans had turned creamy and the meat had fallen from the bone, everything melding into a dish that tasted far richer than its humble ingredients suggested. Served with cornbread or rice, pinto beans provided complete protein for pennies per serving. Juke joint cooks made massive pots that lasted through the weekend, the flavor improving with each reheating. For customers raised in the rural South, this dish tasted like Monday supper, like home, like the meals their mothers made. Pinto beans were survival food that never stopped being delicious. Fried chicken wings were the bar snack that kept customers eating and drinking at juke joints throughout the night. Wings cost less than any other part of the bird, making them perfect for establishments that needed to keep prices low. Seasoned with salt, pepper, cayenne, and garlic powder, then dredged in flour and dropped into hot oil, the wings emerged crispy and golden. The skin shattered on contact while the meat stayed juicy underneath. Served in baskets with hot sauce on the side, wings were finger food meant for sharing and grazing. Customers ordered them by the dozen, piling bones on plates while the music played. The grease made napkins necessary, but nobody complained. Fried wings was social food, passed around tables and devoured without ceremony, perfect for the juke joint atmosphere. Sweet potato pie appeared at juke joints as a dessert that reminded everyone of home kitchens and Sunday dinners. Roasted sweet potatoes were mashed smooth with butter, sugar, cinnamon, nutmeg, and vanilla, then poured into flaky crusts and baked until set. The filling was denser and earthier than pumpkin pie, with a natural sweetness that needed less sugar than other desserts. Juke joints kept pies under glass domes on counters, slicing wedges for customers who needed something sweet after plates of savory food. The spices perfumed the air, mixing with cigarette smoke and barbecue. Sweet potato pie was celebration and comfort combined, the taste of holidays and homecomings. For a dime or quarter, a slice could transport someone back to their grandmother's kitchen, even inside a roadhouse. Liver and onions showed up on juke joint plates as the iron-rich dish that working people needed to keep going. Thin slices of beef or pork liver were dredged in seasoned flour and fried quickly in hot fat, the goal being a crispy exterior with a pink, tender center. Onions were cooked separately until soft and sweet, then piled on top with gravy made from pan drippings. The flavor was strong and mineral rich, not for everyone, but beloved by those who grew up eating it. Liver cost far less than muscle meat, but provided more nutrition per bite. Juke joints served it as a full plate with rice or mashed potatoes, the kind of meal that stuck to ribs through long nights. This was practical food, valued for what it gave the body as much as how it tasted. Cornbread was the constant companion to nearly every dish served at juke joints across the South. Made from stone-ground cornmeal, buttermilk, eggs, and lard, the bread was baked in cast iron skillets that gave it a crispy bottom crust. The texture was denser than cake, slightly gritty, and carried the earthy sweetness of corn. Juke joints serve wedges or squares alongside greens, beans, and stews, the bread soaking up potlikker and gravy. Some versions ran sweeter, almost like dessert, while others stayed savory and simple. The skillet itself mattered, seasoned by years of use and never washed with soap. Cornbread cost almost nothing to make, but completed every plate it touched. It was the foundation of soul food, the bread that enslaved people made from rations and free people made from tradition. Pickled eggs sat in jars beside the pickled pig's feet, offering protein for customers who wanted something quick between drinks. Hard-boiled eggs were submerged in spiced vinegar brine, sometimes with beet juice that turned them pink and added sweetness. The pickling firmed the whites and infused the eggs with tangy, slightly sour flavor that cut through the heaviness of fried foods. Juke joints kept jars on counters where customers could point and order, the eggs fished out with tongs and served on small plates. They cost almost nothing and lasted for weeks, making them perfect for establishments watching every penny. Pickled eggs were bar food from another era, simple and strange, but satisfying for those who appreciated their vinegary bite and convenience. Fried whiting plates were the weeknight special at Juke joints, where fresh fish arrived from coastal suppliers. These small, mild-flavored fish were cleaned whole, dredged in seasoned cornmeal, and fried until the skin turned golden and crispy. The flesh inside stayed white and flaky, pulling easily from delicate bones that required careful eating. Juke joints served whiting on paper-lined plates with white bread, coleslaw, and hot sauce. The fish were cheap because they were plentiful, arriving in ice-packed boxes that kept prices low. Customers ate them with their hands, working around bones and dipping pieces in sauce. For people who grew up near rivers and coasts, fried whiting tasted like Friday nights and family fish fries. The simplicity was the point, letting the fresh fish speak for itself. Peach cobbler bubbled in pans behind Juke joint counters during summer months when fresh peaches flooded southern markets. Sliced peaches were tossed with sugar, cinnamon, and a squeeze of lemon, then topped with sweet biscuit dough that baked into golden crusts. The fruit collapsed into syrupy sweetness while the topping absorbed juices and turned slightly crispy on top. Juke joints served cobbler warm in shallow bowls, sometimes with a scoop of vanilla ice cream that melted into the hot fruit. The smell alone drew customers toward the counter, the combination of baked peaches and buttery dough impossible to resist. Cobbler cost little to make when peaches were in season, allowing Juke joints to offer dessert at prices working people could afford. This was summer captured in a bowl, the taste of orchards and front porch memories. Pigtails and rice appeared on Juke joint menus as another way to use every part of the hog. The tails were braised low and slow until the cartilage softened and the meat turned silky, releasing gelatin that thickened the cooking liquid into rich gravy. Seasoned with onions, garlic, and bay leaves, pigtails developed a deep, porky flavor that elevated simple rice into something memorable. Customers gnawed the small bones clean, extracting every bit of tender meat and fat. The dish cost almost nothing but delivered satisfaction that expensive cuts could not match. For African Americans who understood nose-to-tail eating generations before it became fashionable, pigtails was simply good food. Juke joints served them as plates or bowls, always with enough gravy to soak the rice completely and leave customers full. Mustard greens offered a sharper, more peppery alternative to collards at Juke joints that served multiple varieties. The leaves were younger and more tender, requiring less cooking time, but delivering a distinctive bite that some customers preferred. Cooked with smoked meat and seasoned with vinegar and hot sauce, mustard greens developed complex flavor that balanced bitterness with salt and smoke. Juke joints kept pots of both greens simmering, letting customers choose according to taste. Mustard greens were cheaper than collards in some regions, making them the economical choice for establishments watching every penny. The potlikker was just as valuable, packed with nutrients and flavor that cornbread sopped up perfectly. For customers who wanted something with more character, mustard greens delivered exactly that. Fried chicken livers were the secret menu item that regular customers knew to request at Juke joints across the South. The livers were cleaned, soaked in buttermilk to mellow their mineral intensity, then dredged in seasoned flour and fried until crispy outside while staying creamy inside. The texture was unlike any other fried food, the exterior shattering to reveal soft, almost mousse-like centers. Served with hot sauce and white bread, chicken livers cost even less than gizzards and provided iron that working people needed. Some customers ordered them as snacks between drinks, while others made them the centerpiece of full meals. The flavor was strong but not overpowering, especially when balanced with acidic hot sauce. Chicken livers represented true economy, turning offal into something people genuinely craved and ordered repeatedly. Hoppin John was the New Year's dish that appeared at juke joints, celebrating the holiday with food meant to bring luck. Black-eyed peas were simmered with rice, onions, and smoked pork until everything melded into a creamy, flavorful dish. Tradition held that eating Hoppin John on New Year's Day brought good fortune, the peas representing coins and the greens served alongside representing paper money. Juke joints made massive pots for holiday crowds, serving plates to customers who wanted tradition along with celebration. The dish was African in origin, carried through generations, and adapted to Southern ingredients. Even outside of New Year's, some juke joints kept Hoppin John on the menu, recognizing that customers craved its earthy, comforting flavor regardless of season. This was soul food with spiritual significance. Blackberry cobbler appeared during summer months when wild berries grew thick along fences and roadsides across the rural South. The berries were tart and seedy, requiring more sugar than peaches, but delivering intense fruit flavor that nothing else matched. Topped with biscuit dough and baked until bubbling, blackberry cobbler turned foraged fruit into dessert worth paying for. The juice stained everything purple, including bowls and fingers of customers who ate it. Juke joints served it warm with cream poured over or cold the next day when the juices had thickened. For people who remembered picking berries as children, this cobbler tasted like summer and childhood combined. Blackberry cobbler was seasonal treasure, available only when nature provided the fruit that made it possible. Souse meat sat in jars at juke joint counters, offering vinegary preserved pork for customers who appreciated its unique tangy flavor. Made from pig head, meat, and feet, souse was cooked until tender, then covered in spiced vinegar that both preserved and flavored the meat. The texture was gelatinous and firm, sliced cold and served with crackers or bread. The taste was sour, salty, and intensely porky, an acquired preference that divided people immediately. For those who loved it, Souse was bar food perfection, something to nibble while drinking and talking. The preservation method meant Souse lasted for weeks without refrigeration, making it practical for establishments with limited cold storage. Souse represented African American foodways that wasted nothing, transforming head meat into something worth saving. Fried okra appeared as the vegetable side that converted even okra skeptics at juke joints throughout the South. The pods were sliced into rounds, dredged in seasoned cornmeal, and fried until the exterior turned golden and crunchy while the interior stayed tender. Frying eliminated the sliminess that made some people avoid okra, replacing it with satisfying crunch. Served hot in paper-lined baskets, fried okra was finger food that customers popped like popcorn between bites of other dishes. The cornmeal coating crisped perfectly in hot oil, each piece delivering earthy okra flavor wrapped in golden shell. Juke joints made batches throughout the night, keeping the supply fresh for steady demand. Fried okra was cheap to produce when okra was in season, making it a profitable side that customers ordered repeatedly. Potlikker soup was the ultimate waste-nothing creation that turned cooking liquid into a meal unto itself. After collard greens or turnip greens simmered for hours with ham hocks or fatback, the resulting broth, potlikker, became too precious to pour down any drain. African American families served this vitamin-rich broth in bowls with crumbled cornbread stirred in, creating a simple soup both filling and nourishing. The broth carried all the nutrients leached from greens during cooking, plus the smoky richness of whatever pork had flavored the pot. During wartime rationing, when fresh vegetables were precious, potlikker provided essential nutrition that kept families healthy. Elders prescribed it for colds, weakness, and malaise, understanding instinctively what science would later confirm about its value. Children might not have loved the taste, but they grew strong on it nonetheless. Potlikker soup proved that African American cooking wasted nothing and honored every ingredient.
Neckbones and rice transformed what butchers considered scraps into rich, satisfying meals with minimal expense and maximum flavor. Pork neckbones were browned in large pots until caramelized, then simmered for hours with onions, garlic, and bay leaves until meat fell from bone. White rice served as bed for tender meat and thick gravy, providing complete nutrition. Church mothers understood neckbones required patience and proper seasoning, transforming tough cuts through slow cooking. These bones cost almost nothing at Black-owned butcher shops, making them perfect for feeding crowds on limited budgets. The dish appeared at weeknight suppers and revival meetings, where its hearty nature sustained people through hours of worship. Children learned that good food did not require expensive ingredients, just knowledge, time, and care. Neckbones and rice represented resourcefulness, allowing Black communities to thrive despite economic challenges, proving dignity and deliciousness could emerge from what others discarded.
Lima beans and rice was the simple Christmas side that stretched pennies into plates full of comfort and complete protein. Dried lima beans were soaked overnight, then simmered with ham hocks, onions, garlic, and bay leaves until creamy and tender. The beans were spooned over fluffy white rice, the cooking liquid becoming a rich gravy that tied everything together. Lima beans cost almost nothing and expanded dramatically during cooking, making a single bag feed large families. The ham hocks added smoky depth without requiring expensive cuts of meat. This dish appeared at Christmas dinners throughout Black communities in the 1970s, often overshadowed by flashier dishes, but quietly keeping everyone satisfied. Lima beans and rice proved that humble ingredients, prepared with care, created comfort worth celebrating.
Molasses bread carried families through the leanest months of wartime rationing when white sugar vanished from store shelves and flour grew scarce. African American cooks mixed dark, robust molasses with cornmeal, a little lard, and whatever flour they could spare, creating dense loaves that baked into something deeply satisfying. The bread emerged from wood-fired ovens with a dark crust and moist interior that tasted of earth, sweetness, and survival. Sliced thick and eaten with butter or alongside beans, it provided carbohydrates and iron that working families desperately needed. Molasses was cheaper than sugar and packed with nutrients refined sweeteners lacked, making it both practical and healthful. Churches served this bread at fellowship meals, and mothers baked it for children attending segregated schools. The loaves kept well for days, allowing families to bake once and eat throughout the week. Molasses bread was proof that Black cooks could transform humble ingredients into something worth savoring.
Peach cobbler with hand-rolled crust arrived at church suppers in rectangular pans, golden pastry bubbling with fruit juices that caramelized at edges while centers stayed tender. Fresh peaches were sliced during summer when abundant and cheap, tossed with sugar, cinnamon, nutmeg, and lemon juice before being covered with pastry dough rolled thin. The cobbler baked slowly until crust turned golden and peach filling thickened into syrup pooling in corners, creating bites ranging from crispy edges to fruit-soaked centers. Churchwomen made these in home kitchens early Sunday morning, timing baking so dessert was slightly warm when served. Peaches in season cost little at roadside stands, with bruised fruit perfect since it would be cooked down anyway. The dish represented summer abundance and preserving seasonal fruit, with families often canning peaches for year-round cobblers. Children lined up eagerly, hoping for corner pieces with extra crust, while adults savored the combination that tasted like celebration.
Smoked ham steaks were the weeknight luxury that became Christmas tradition when whole hams cost more than budgets allowed. Thick slices of smoked ham were fried in cast iron skillets until the edges caramelized and the fat rendered into crispy ribbons. Some cooks glazed them with brown sugar and pineapple juice, creating sticky sweetness that balanced the salt. Ham steaks cost far less per pound than whole hams, yet delivered the same smoky flavor families associated with holiday celebration. They cooked quickly, making them practical for busy Christmas mornings when ovens were occupied with other dishes. Children loved the crispy edges, while adults appreciated the economy. Smoked ham steaks proved that celebration didn't require spending beyond your means, just knowing how to make affordable cuts shine.
Fatback and cornmeal gravy was the foundation of countless wartime breakfasts in African-American households across the rural South. When meat was rationed and money tight, families sliced thin pieces of salted pork fat and rendered them slowly in cast iron until the edges crisped and the fat turned liquid gold. That precious lard became the base for thick, peppery gravy made by whisking in cornmeal and water until it bubbled into something hearty. The gravy was poured over biscuits, rice, or whatever starch the family had, transforming simple ingredients into something that stuck to ribs and fueled long days of labor. Children ate it before school, knowing the richness would carry them through morning lessons. Adults relied on it before heading to factories, fields, or domestic service jobs. This wasn't fancy cooking. It was survival wisdom passed from mother to daughter. The dish cost almost nothing, yet delivered comfort that money couldn't buy.
Gula red rice with sausage carried Carolina Low Country traditions into fellowship halls, a dish with roots in West African jollof rice seasoned through generations. Long grain rice was sautéed in bacon drippings with onions, bell peppers, and garlic before crushed tomatoes transformed the mixture into something rich and red, with smoked sausage adding protein. The rice absorbed every bit of flavor as it simmered, turning tender with each grain coated in tomato-rich seasoning. Churchwomen from coastal regions brought this proudly, knowing it represented cultural heritage connecting congregations to ancestors who never forgot their origins. Rice was inexpensive and fed dozens when stretched with vegetables and meat, making it practical for church budgets. The tomatoes added vitamins while sausage provided richness to satisfy working people arriving hungry. Gula red rice appeared at Wednesday suppers and Sunday dinners, signaling someone understood honoring traditions while feeding community.
Pig feet stew was the Christmas dish that connected 1970s tables to generations of Southern cooking tradition and thrifty wisdom. Pig feet were scrubbed clean, split, and simmered for hours with onions, garlic, bay leaves, and vinegar until the meat turned silky and the collagen melted into rich, unctuous broth. The texture was unlike anything else, tender meat surrounded by gelatinous goodness that satisfied on cold December nights. Pig feet cost almost nothing at the butcher counter since most shoppers passed them by. But Black families knew their value, understanding that slow cooking transformed these humble cuts into something approaching luxury. The stew was served with rice or cornbread to soak up every drop. Pig feet stew reminded everyone that the best holiday cooking came from patience and tradition.
Crackling bread turned what others discarded into something worth fighting over at the dinner table. After rendering lard from pork fat, the crispy bits that remained, cracklings, were folded into cornbread batter and baked until golden. The result was cornbread with pockets of salty, crunchy pork throughout, each bite delivering comfort and richness. During the 1940s, when ration books limited meat purchases, crackling bread stretched those precious pork scraps into something that felt abundant. Families gathered around cast iron skillets, cutting wedges while the bread was still warm, the cracklings releasing their smoky flavor with every bite. Children considered finding an extra large crackling a small treasure. Adults appreciated how the bread filled empty stomachs without emptying thin wallets. The dish required no special ingredients beyond what home hog butchering provided. Crackling bread was community food, church food, and survival food, all wrapped into one satisfying package.
Black-eyed peas with ham hocks simmered in church kitchens year-round but held special significance on New Year's Day, when congregations gathered to eat them for luck and prosperity. Dried peas were soaked overnight, then cooked slowly with a single ham hock that released smoky, salty flavor, while onions and garlic added depth. The result was creamy beans in thick pot liquor served as soup or over rice, with ham hocks meat pulled from bone. Churchwomen understood a little meat went far when combined with beans, providing protein without the expense of steaks beyond most budgets. Black-eyed peas cost almost nothing, with dried bags available for pennies, perfect for feeding large crowds after Sunday service. The dish carried deep cultural significance, connecting congregations to Southern agricultural traditions and New Year's customs promising good fortune. Children ate them without complaint because Potlikker's richness made beans taste special, while adults appreciated both nutrition and continuity with tradition.
Rutabaga with bacon was the overlooked vegetable that earned its place on 1970 soul food Christmas tables through sheer deliciousness. Rutabagas were peeled, cubed, and boiled until tender, then mashed with butter and seasoned with salt and pepper. Crispy bacon pieces were folded throughout, adding smoky richness and satisfying crunch to the sweet, earthy vegetable. Rutabagas cost far less than sweet potatoes, but offered similar comfort and natural sweetness. The vegetable stored through winter, making it practical and affordable. Children who claim to hate vegetables often ask for seconds of bacon-studded rutabaga. The dish proved that creativity with humble ingredients could create new traditions worth continuing. Rutabaga with bacon showed that 1970s soul food embraced innovation alongside heritage.
Sawmill gravy earned its name from lumber camps, where workers needed cheap, filling food to fuel backbreaking labor. African-American cooks perfected this dish using pan drippings, flour, milk or water, salt, and generous black pepper that gave the gravy its distinctive speckled appearance. The technique was simple but required skill, whisking constantly to prevent lumps while building flavor from whatever meat had been fried beforehand. Poured over biscuits, the gravy transformed plain bread into something substantial enough to carry a family through hours of work. During the 1940s, when meat was rationed and dairy sometimes scarce, sawmill gravy stretched resources brilliantly. A single pan of fried fatback could produce enough drippings for gravy that fed an entire family. The pepper wasn't just flavoring, it made the gravy seem more substantial and satisfying. This was working class food that acknowledged hardship while refusing to surrender to it.
Candied yams with marshmallows crowned every church supper table, baked in aluminum pans that mothers carried from home kitchens to fellowship halls. Sweet potatoes were peeled and sliced thick, layered with brown sugar, butter, cinnamon, and nutmeg before being blanketed with miniature marshmallows that turned golden under heat. The result tasted like comfort itself, with tender yams swimming in caramelized syrup and marshmallows creating a toasted crust children fought over. These appeared at Easter dinners and revival suppers, essential beside ham and greens. Sweet potatoes cost pennies per pound and lasted weeks in pantries, making them economical for feeding crowds. Church mothers competed quietly over whose yams achieved perfect balance, with recipes passed through families and guarded like secrets. The dish represented abundance even during lean times, proving humble ingredients transformed with love could create joy.
Turkey wings and gravy were the 1970s answer to expensive whole turkeys, stretching holiday budgets while delivering all the flavor families craved. Wings were seasoned with garlic powder, onion powder, paprika, salt, and pepper, then browned in hot oil until the skin crisped golden. The wings were transferred to roasting pans, covered with rich gravy made from drippings and broth, then baked until the meat fell from the bone. Mothers bought wings by the flat since they cost a fraction of whole birds, yet fed families generously. The gravy soaked into rice or dressing, making every bite feel like celebration. Turkey wings appeared on Christmas tables throughout Black neighborhoods, proving that smart shopping created feasts rivaling any expensive spread.
Which Juke joint dish would you want to taste today? Drop it in the comments, hit like, and subscribe for more forgotten flavors from Black culinary history.